7:14 on a foggy Monday. Where's all that rain that says going to come through last night? I was bracing for storm. You know, it's funny how you pattern your day over the weather forecast. Well, you know, the storms are coming eventually.
Man, it's not going to bother me if the rain moves on out for just a little bit.
Dry out a little bit.
Just dry out some. Man, I'm fixing to have to bale my yard if we don't get some breaks, you know. I got clover and I got rabbits big as footballs laying out.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the rabbits are happy.
Oh, boy, are they ever? Are they
There'll be a bunch of little ones hopping around here before
yeah.
long.
Anyway, what's up at Minute Mechanic these days?
Well, man, we got 5 more days, and we'll get us a 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
Been a long time coming, right, Dale?
It has,
Since the first of the year. Yeah, we'll be busy. It's going to be a lot going on.
You mean you're open Groundhog Day?
Yeah, I'm afraid so. We got to see Poxitani Phil see his shadow, and we got 6 more weeks of winter, right?
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah,
Glad it's behind us.
I am too. I like this weather.
I do too.
You know, it's good everything I enjoy doing basically is outside, and I don't like being cold. So
I don't either. I don't either. Anyway, we got a couple of questions. What kind of brake pads you use and why?
We use almost 100% exclusively Wagner thermo quiet brake pads, and we have for a long time. And if people listening to this that have listened for a while have heard me expound on the advantages of these pads in the past, and they are very, very good stuff. Now, if you're looking for the bargain basement or the price leader of brake pads, this is not your brake pad.
Nope.
They cost more, but they're worth it. And one thing I have learned in my time on this earth, in almost every situation, is you will get what you pay for. And the Wagner Thermoquiet pads, years ago, we used to have issues, you know, especially when it was semi-metallic brake pads, and you remember some of this, Dale, when it was brake squeal, brake squeal, brake squeal.
Yep.
And this was when it's been 10 or more years ago, probably 15 years ago. We just fought with brake squeal. The manufacturers come out with all sorts of different Band-Aids to try to limit brake squeal.
How many times have we pulled brake pads and filed the edges and put Elmer's glue on the back
and all sorts of things? You remember the brake pads used to come with a tube of that bluish looking glue, almost to glue them in, and it was really a dampener. It was a padding to absorb some of the vibrations to stop that. Well, then here comes a guy in one day, and he's a Wagner rep, and he's showing us these thermoquiet brake pads, and it's a bonded shim in there, noise dampener. That's made into everything instead of a stick-on or and man, you guys need to try these pads. So we started using them, and it worked.
Yeah,
so we have never quit. We still use them. We've been using those things so long, and they make them for about every vehicle. You know, you can get them for foreign cars, domestic, and they work great. They last really well. We don't have issues with people coming in 15 or 20,000 miles and telling us their brake pads are worn out. Remember some of the old brake pads that they went with a really soft material to try to slow down on the squeals and stuff?
You could spot them by the color of the wheels, all that black dust on them.
And there's another thing that your thermoquiets don't do. They don't turn your wheels black or gray or brown, whatever color you want to pick from.
Oh, I know.
They don't throw out dust. They last really well. And we have very little issue with any kind of noise coming from. Now, disc brakes, by their very nature, if you give them half a chance, they will make a little bit of noise sometimes. When it gets dusty, different things. If there's a little bit of rust on your brake rotors, you know, after they've set through rain and stuff, and they get just that tiny bit of surface rust, sometimes disc brakes will make noise, but typically like that, it'll go away. And the thermoquiets we put on, man, I bet we did 6 or 10 brake jobs probably last week, you know, and we use thermoquiets on every one of them. And until somebody comes up with something better, there may be other brake pads out there that are just as good. I'll say that.
But I haven't found them yet.
I hadn't found anything that's better. I'll say that. So we stick with them, and people will ask me that question: is, you know, man, those pads are kind of expensive. Yeah, I know they are, but you'll be happy with them, and you'll get what you pay for on them. You see ads in these flyers from different parts stores sometimes where you can buy disc brake pads for $14.99. And yeah,
you can.
They'll fit your car and they'll stop your car, but
By Christmas, you're going to be wishing you spent the extra $35-$40.
a lot of times with that kind of a brake pad, you'll be the one at the McDonald's drive-up or at the school to pick up your kids, and the brakes are squealing. You know, they can hear you a half a mile away, or your wheels are black as a lump of coal. You know, so again, we've used Wagner thermoquiets, and until somebody shows me something better, that's what we'll continue to use on all of our brake jobs.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yep.
And I've used Wagner brakes for 40 years. You know.
Yeah, you know, there's always somebody, you know, from another parts store coming by. Well, look at this. This is a new XYZ brake pad. And I'm sure they're fine. You know, manufacturers have got to up their product. You know, and I'm sure those are very good brake pads. But man, I hate to quit something I know that works and move over to something that I hope works, or somebody tells me works.
Don't if it works, don't fix it.
Yeah.
You know, and you've got a good product in Wagner thermoquiets.
Yes, and they have a good warranty on them, and I mean, the manufacturer and the people that sell them to us, they back them up very well. If we ever have any issues, the warranty is not a problem. And if you've got a properly functioning brake system on your car where everything's the way it should be, they last very, very well.
What kind of wiper blades you use?
And why are they so expensive sometimes, right? Yeah.
'Cause
Wipers
they're 14 feet long.
Well, you see that some, you know. Typically, there's two different kinds of wipers. You remember they're kind of like a framework wiper blade. You know, the one that has multiple attachment points between the arm and the blade.
Yeah.
And that has been around forever. Since I was a kid, and even before that, that's the typical wiper blades that you see. And you still see a bunch of them. You can buy those, and you can find them anywhere from probably $3 or $4 or $5 a piece on up. And here's another instance where, in my experience, you'll get what you pay for.
Right.
The very cheap wiper blades will deliver you very cheap wiper blade performance. They don't last very long. They're streaky, they're noisy, and a few years back, it's probably been more than a few years, probably 10 years ago, they came out with what they call the beam blades, and that is a solid wiper blade. And inside, encased in the body of that blade and arm, is a piece of spring steel, and that's what makes it conform to the windshield. And you'll see those. They're kind of an aerodynamic looking wiper blade. I think maybe some of the European cars were the first ones that I remember seeing with those blades on them. Now they've spread like wildfire. You see them on a little bit of everything. And they work very well. They last pretty darn good, but they're expensive. And, you know, there are many different brands of wiper blade maker out there that's using these. Trico, Anco, Bosch, Rain-X. Everybody's, you know, going pretty heavy into this beam stuff. And I put a set on a lady's Chevy here a while back, and man, they were like, by the time I put the two blades on there, they were like 22, 23-inch blades, and they were about $50.
Wow.
Yeah. But, you know, she was happy with them. She said, I want the best wiper blades you can get. Okay. And they last, you know, a lot of the $5 or $6 ones, you know, you'll be changing them fairly often.
Yeah, and I find that, you know, because I park out in direct sunlight, and really that's between ice on the window in the winter that will cut the wiper blade itself, or sitting in hot sun and getting so hard they can't work as a squeegee. You know, it's nothing but a dual squeegee.
Yep.
That's all it amounts to.
Yeah, squeegee's going and coming.
Yeah.
And the blade's got to be flexible to do that. It's got to maintain good contact with the windshield. And, of course, we don't have to worry about it now, but that's one of those deals in the fall or in the winter when you get that frost. You need to wait for that windshield, or you either need to scrape it or defrost it with using the heat. Because if you turn your wipers on and run it over a bunch of ice, that's usually the end of them actually wiping water off in a good way.
Yeah. That's where you get the streaks. You know, it warms up, say it warms up to 45, 50 degrees, and it's a little bit of rain, and you got all these streaks in the window. Well, the ice cut the blade.
Yep, that's what happened. You know, and the other thing to remember on those frame style with the multiple attachment points, if you leave them on there, long enough and the blade, the squeegee part of it comes off, which we see fairly often, where they've gotten old and the rubber's torn. Man, those things will just scratch the fire out of your windshield. So you need to watch that stuff, because those metal tips will get down on your glass and
about 3 swipes and it's over.
And you've got a scratch, and then it's going to be there until you replace that windshield or replace the car. So that's another thing to watch out for. If you hear a bunch of squeaking going on, you need to, look at your blades. Or that's part of what we do when we do an oil change up at Minute Mechanic, is we look at wiper blades while we're washing your windshield. And we try to give you an idea. If there's a problem, man, a lot of times you'll see the ends, maybe a couple, 3 inches on either end of the blade that has torn. Yep. And in short order, that blade will end up falling apart. The whole squeegee part of it will come off. And then if you're not careful, there you go with that scratch we were talking about.
I had that happen on the rear wiper on my vehicle. And heard that scratch will stop.
Yep. It don't take many swipes of that metal on glass to cause a scratch. But the beam blades, when next time you're at Walmart or something, you're thinking about wiper blades, you can walk back there in their automotive and look. Man, there's about 1 million different kinds of wiper blades.
Oh, yeah.
And it can get a little bit daunting, and depends on how much a person wants to spend. We put on all kinds of blades up at Minute Mechanic. We still have some of the frame style, and we stock the beam style. It just depends on what a person's budget, allows, what they want to spend. And if you've got a question about, especially as rainy as what it's been, and it looks like according to the weatherman this morning, we've got several more days of rain coming. Mm-hmm. And man, there's nothing much more important in the weather we've been having when you're driving down the road at 60 in a pouring rain than having some good wiper blades on your car.
Well, let's add to that by proper lighting.
Yep. Headlamps,
low and high beam, the front markers, park lamps, whatever you want to call them. And then, of course, on the back end.
Right. This morning when I left home at Gasville, the fog was thick enough, even with headlights on, you couldn't see people.
Mm-mm. And people were driving without headlights.
And I saw one car.
I did too.
I saw one vehicle this morning in that fog that did not have headlights. They were sitting at the stoplight. And I guess if they hadn't had their brake lights on, I'd have hit them. I wasn't very far behind them when I could see their brake lights. And but they did, after they went just a bit further, they did turn their headlights on. I guess they were distracted, wasn't thinking, whatever, like we all do. Mm-hmm. But they did turn their lights on. But even with headlights, good, bright, properly functioning lights in fog like we had this morning, it's tough to see the other people.
It is.
So it's tough for them to see you as well.
And once again, I want to thank Mountain Home Police Department. My son was driving my vehicle, and I knew the bulb was burned out. I just didn't get it replaced within the 2-hour frame. Warning ticket for a brake light, which is a good thing. They were on the job. And, I'm normally checking my lights about every 2 to 3 weeks. Very simple. If you've got windows in your garage door, as you pull in your garage, if you can see the headlights or you can see the front of the vehicle, you can turn them on and you can check all your lights in the reflection of the glass. Then you can turn around and back in, and you can look in the rearview mirror. You can check them yourself. You can drive by Minute Mechanic and have them checked.
Sure. We do that stuff for people a lot, and check their lights and tires, as part of some of what we do up there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's easy for lights and things to get away from us, especially, a headlight, you'll notice it. Okay, well, I'm driving down the road, and my lights are not working very well, so I've probably got a bulb out. But as far as brake lights, turn signals, usually the turn signals will even, when you turn on your signal to turn right and the bulb, it flashes really quickly, you got a bulb out somewhere.
Yeah.
But brake lights, tail lights, things like backup lights, that's one people forget about big time until you need to see what's behind you.
Sure.
Backup lights go out, and it's tough to see. Yeah, we check stuff like that for people all the time. And we keep a pretty good selection of bulbs. There are some that we don't have, but again, we can have them pretty quickly. Sure. But yeah, we can sure do that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, Minute Mechanic's located Highway 201 North across from Salvation Army. This week, they're there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Next Monday, we'll be closed.
We will be closed, 3-day weekend.
So anticipate any travel repairs or maintenance you might need to do before the Memorial Day holiday. That's 1 week from today on the 25th of May.
Get your name on the list fairly quick this week if you got something big you want done, because I really foresee things getting jammed up. They almost always do. Get pretty busy.
This will be a good week to check the wipers, brakes, Maybe double check the AC. What about an air filter? Maybe
Sure.
a cabin filter, something of that nature. Could be anything.
Tires, absolutely. Before you hit a long trip somewhere, we need to check tires and things like that. Look for tread wear, how much tire tread we got left on them, things like that. Absolutely.
Give Mike a call this morning at 425-3135. Of course, they're located Highway 201 North across from Salvation Army. They'll be there 8 to 5 Monday through Friday this week, 8 to 5 Tuesday through Friday next week. Time for the news. Be right back.